is Fall Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer at fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who was at Yellowstone earlier today, whose team didn't lose to Alabama but lost to something far worse called Duke. Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. We're still here. How are you?
We are running on fumes, brother. It's been a long day. Traveled across the western part of the country, the western pond, if you will. Flew across that, and it's been a day. Shouts to the Tar Heels. They're effing terrible. I don't think Georgia's necessarily effing terrible, but it's been a day. How you doing, man? It's been a while. I missed you.
I missed you too, brother. It was Alicia helped me keep the boat on the pond. But I still crashed it along with those three lifts that canceled on me to get back home tonight. Uh yeah, we're just sitting there and watching the game at an establishment, and it was a massacre initially, and then it got better. And I felt like I was watching a Falcons game, and I get to watch one of those tomorrow versus the Saints. But at least the Braves are pretty much going to be in the postseason. They need basically one more win or another Diamondbacks loss between, I guess, tomorrow or the doubleheader for the Mets on Sunday. So I've got that going for me. Be absolutely hilarious to have a higher seed than the Mets in the postseason.
Would be great, dude. I mean, I'll root for the Braves with you. Every team I root for might be terrible. Like I'm not sure the Cowboys are any good. The Red Sox are not going to be in the playoffs. North Carolina might not be in a bowl game. So yeah, it's we're having a bad time over here.
I know, man. It's a tough time being alive, but we're still here. Yes, we're gonna do some 3 yards in a cloud of punt with the most poorly executed version of Marty Ball today, because that's just the vibes of the show, going on absolute fumes. But the hilarity, it's too good to not do it. So we're gonna do this. What do you want to run with to start, Cody?
Yeah, dude. So we got to run with Kalen Deboer in Alabama. Like it just
I know.
that was one of the more impressive things I've seen in quite some time. And it was top to bottom. Like even when Alabama got put on the ropes in the second half, like Alabama just didn't show any quit. Like they were still running their offense. They were still staying within themselves. Like at halftime, Kalen DeBoer said something about Jalen Milroe that really stuck with me after this game, which was, he was asked what Jalen Milroe and what Alabama was able to do to build that first half lead. And it was staying within himself, doing what needed to be done. And that's what he did. And one of the things that makes Alabama special, particularly this iteration of Alabama, is the playmakers. You look at someone like Ryan Williams, who still mind blowing. The kid's 17 years old, man. Like just unbelievable stuff. But like that game-winning touchdown that Jalen Milroe threw to Ryan Williams, that was letting a playmaker make a play. Like he got the ball where it needed to be, and then the playmaker made a play. And Jalen Milroe is a playmaker in himself, particularly with his legs. But the fact that Kalen DeBoer knows what these strengths of these guys are, even and puts his trust in a 17-year-old, lets the playmakers make plays. It was a sight to behold tonight. It was really impressive, and I think this game says a lot more about Kalen DeBoer in Alabama than it does about Georgia.
Thank you. Yeah, you're patting me on the back like I did too in this moment. That's okay. Um, a lot of takeaways from this game. I'll be very positive about Alabama right now because you got to give credit where it's due. Jalen Miller is 1,000% a first round pick. I don't even know if he's QB1. He's top five. I haven't been able to figure out the order yet. Beck looked pretty good in the second half. Turned the ball over four times and almost
Hmm.
once. Kind of shows his talent, whatever. But like Milrose Milroe might be a better version of Lamar Jackson. It's kind of like I'm watching this in real time. I'm like, yeah, he's gonna be a star in the NFL for a long time. Ryan Williams, I'm just gonna go out there and say it. I think he's the most talented wide receiver I've ever seen. Like
It's unbelievable, dude. Like the fact that we're not going to talk about Ohio State a whole lot today, but the fact that him and Jeremiah Smith are true freshmen in this class together is just the most mind-blowing thing in the world. Like they're but like legitimately might be the two best receivers in the country. Like yeah, I mean, you throw Luther Burden and Travis Hunter in there, but like they're in that conversation already. And like the fact that Ryan Williams is doing this when he should still be a senior in high school is unbelievable.
The fact he had like two plays. He obviously had the touchdown to basically win the game. And then he had like another one where like he basically threw it up to himself and caught it. It was just
Yeah.
absolutely bonkers. Like this is a 17-year-old, but he's wearing a kill everybody eye black. It's
I don't know if you saw it, but there was a screenshot someone took of he had to kill everybody eye black, and then there was someone one of his teammates right behind him that had like a psalm, a Bible verse written on there, and like someone tweeted it out and said like inside everyone there are two wolves, and I was like,
I
yes, absolutely.
I did see that. This it's like Tebow with like John 3:16 and the phrase we can't say that Escobar used to put in his eye black too. That's very offensive to a lot of people.
Yes, yes. So the other thing I wanted to say about Kalen Deboer in this game that really stood out to me, and it seemed like Kirby Smart even acknowledged it with his halftime quotes as well, is there was a lot that they had not put on tape before this game that they just threw at Georgia. And like that's why Carson Beck had a really tough time in that first half because Kane Womack and that defense, shouts to them. I've given them a lot of flack this year in saying, I'm not sure that they quite have it on the defensive side of the ball without Nick Saban, with all the turnover that they've had on that staff. And they made Beck look quite average in that first half, actually sub-average. Like Beck was bad in the first half. There's no denying
Yeah.
that. In the second half, he came out and he balled out. And so hats off to him for doing that. But the fact that DeBoer was smart enough to keep his cards close to the vest and throw things at this Georgia team that they were not prepared for says a lot about what DeBoer is as a coach. Now, if we get to a rematch situation where these two teams are playing again for the SEC championship or something like that, I do wonder what that's going to look like. I wonder what DeBoer is going to have up his sleeve then. But it was very clear to me that DeBoer was in his bag a little bit for this game, and it showed. And I think that. We'll talk Georgia here in a little bit, but I do think that one of the things that stood out to me was that the Alabama coaching staff under DeBoer looked a lot more prepared for this game than Kirby's staff.
Yeah, I think Kirby wanted to just smack Glenn Schumann's stupid nose off his face. Again, this is what I said about Glenn Schumann. I'm like, I hate to say I don't see it. Like
Yeah.
he's not a head coach. He's my age and he's been like it's like some Freddie Gonzalez BS there. It's like this isn't like Muschamp. Muschamp would be over there like, popping like every vein out of his forehead like that guy in the classroom meme we see with the guy like that guy. No, I'm not actually seizing on live on air, but like, but yeah, one thing that I had apprehension about with Kalen DeBoer and his staff is like too many cooks in the kitchen, everything like that. Nick Sheridan called a hell of a game.
Mhm.
Jamarcus Shepard's really showing his receivers how to ball out. There's one play in particular. I'm with my friends, and it was the halfback touchdown pass to Jam Miller. I'm like, that couldn't have been executed any better. It was perfectly covered
No.
and made Georgia look so effing stupid. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be a long night, and I still got to record after this, so can't get too can't knock too many back, so to speak.
Yeah, no, 100%. It wasn't a night to kill the pain, as they might say. So yeah, yeah, it's I mean, again, I think this game legitimately, and this isn't just to butter you up. Like I think this game says a lot more about Alabama than it does about Georgia. Like I think that there's a lot to take away from Georgia, and we'll get to that. But like, I had a lot of trepidation about Alabama. I had a lot of trepidation about will Jalen Milroe make that leap? Yes, I have a lot of faith in what Kalen DeBoer's done developing quarterbacks. Yes, I have a lot of faith in the playmakers that he has around him. I think it's a good offensive line when it's healthy, which that was proven tonight. Georgia had a really hard time getting a pass rush against this team now that now that Alabama has a fully functional offensive line. So, like, I do think that. Alabama proved a lot to me tonight. And like before we started recording, I published the projected AP top 25. I moved Alabama up to number one because this is the most impressive win we've seen this season so far. And also, like, let's be clear, it was a great damn game, man. Like
Yeah.
regardless, like, I mean, I'm watching it as a neutral observer. I don't have a dog in the fight, but like, that's one of the most fun college football games I've watched in a long time, specifically the second half, obviously, because the first half wasn't that fun. I was like, okay, I can get these rankings done, lickety split, we'll be done in no time. But that was not the case because I had to, shuffle Alabama and Georgia like four times there at the end.
God, I can't wait to watch the Falcons Saints do this exact same thing in 12 hours. It's gonna be so stupid. I will say this before I run with my next topic. Not to like deflate Alabama's balloon or anything like that. I'm just gonna say it straight up. No one's going undefeated this year. It's not
No,
happening.
no, not at all.
Uh, like Georgia's already lost. Texas hasn't really. impress me as much as they should. And then Alabama, like, I mean, they play with their food and stuff. I think they couldn't have played better for the first half, and Georgia almost came back and got them. The only way that someone's going undefeated is if Ohio State just like takes care of business in the Big Ten. Maybe Miami gets lucky, but at that point, Miami has to win the national title. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really astute point by you. Like, I think that they, I don't even know if you could call it it's somewhat a byproduct of the realignment, but also somewhat of just there's a lot of really damn good teams this year, man. Like, I think that we're not going to see anyone separate themselves, which I'm honestly excited for. Like when we get to the 12 team playoff, it's going to be a freaking blast because I think that at least like the top 8 teams in the country, I think they're almost interchangeable at this point because it's just like I feel like on any given day, on any given game, given the right game plan, given the right coaching, it's just like those games are decided by a hair in each one of those matchups. And so like when that's the case in the regular season, yeah, it's going to be nearly impossible to go undefeated. And if someone does, we'll tip our cap to them, but it's really hard to prognosticate that right now.
Yeah, there's just a lot of really good teams at the top. And I'm going to run with this. After seeing what happened, yes, I was paying attention to this game too, believe it or not, with Penn State beating Illinois pretty handily there in Happy Valley. I'm pretty sure that's the second best team in the Big Ten, and I don't think it's particularly close. I feel that like it's Ohio State and Penn State. They're pretty much locks at this point for the playoff. Oregon's still playing UCLA as we speak, but like nothing that they could do is really going to show me that like they're there. They have to beat Ohio State to kind of prove there. Illinois, I think, still pretty good. I think they'll win some games. They'll be a top 25 team, probably not a playoff team. Don't trust USC at all. Um, there's trying to think, Nebraska's not there. Wisconsin's,
Michigan,
Michigan, yeah, Michigan. It's just like, won't you die already, please? I'm so done with you.
you gave up 24 points to Minnesota. That tells me everything I need to know about you, Michigan. Like you're not a serious you like this is a succession meme. Like that you're not serious people in Ann Arbor. You're really not.
You're not serious groundhogs
That's
either.
right.
I will say though, we were absolutely right with saying that Michigan had to go to Alex Orji. They have an identity on offense. They're just the Mike Vrabel, Arthur Smith, Tennessee Titans, and they
Yeah.
have their Derrick Henry and Khalil Mullings, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah. And he's a
Yeah.
dude. He's very good. He's better than Donovan Edwards. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that might be your Doak Walker favorite right now at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, I don't know. Our boy Ashton Genty is doing
Yeah,
things again.
that's Ashton Genty, Khalil Mullings, not Ollie Gordon, and this is false start.
Not Ollie Gordon for sure.
Dude, Oklahoma State's already out. Like I was
Oh, they're toast.
their pitch that earlier. Alan Bowman's out there just kind of doing stuff. Why is he always doing stuff?
He's been doing stuff for a decade, man.
Doing stuff. It doesn't matter where he is. He's just doing stuff. Kind of I have a couple of thoughts about Penn State. It's occurred to me like people were like dinging them because they lost or on lost, not lost, but like got pushed to the brink by Bowling Green. I'm like, Bowling Green's pretty good. Like Bowling Green is like they're gonna be like they're gonna win like 9 games this year, and they're gonna beat somebody of significance. Like they're gonna beat a Big Ten team in their bowl game, basically, is what I'm getting at.
No, 100% they are. And then on top of that, the more I think about it, like that was a sneaky trap game spot for Penn State that I don't think we really realized at that time because they played the West Virginia game, which we knew was going to be a pretty big, statement game for them to make to start the season. Then they played Bowling Green. Then they had an off week. So like that's a pretty like tricky spot to face a good MAC team, like a team that I picked in the preseason to win the MAC, a team that I think is very damn good. Even though they lost today to Old Dominion, we're not going to talk about that. But even nonetheless, like I, the more I look at that game, it is just a blip on the radar in a trap game. Like I'm not going to take a lot away from the Penn State beating Kent State 56 to nothing last week. That doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Kent State is truly a dumpster fire. They're on their third string quarterback who is playing hurt, which that's not great when you're Kent State. But like what Penn State did tonight is just there's two things that stood out to me. One is that they have so many ways that they can beat you in Andy Kotelnicki's offense. You know, our boy Kotelnicki.
Oh,
But he
Nicky.
Kotelnicki. But they have so many ways they can beat you. Like Drew Lour didn't even play well tonight. He threw for 135 yards on 21 attempts. That's not what I want to see from a college quarterback, someone who is as talented as Drew Lour. And it didn't matter because Katron Allen and Nick Singleton ran for almost 200 yards combined themselves. They did what they wanted on the ground, and so they just kept doing that. They spammed that. Great offensive play calling. But the other part of that is, after the Bowling Green game, everyone was like, okay, is this Penn State defense really for real? Like, we know they have Abdul Carter, we know they have all these guys that are going to be NFL players, but are they like legitimate? Are they going to be able to put it together under Tom Allen? They went out and like held a Illinois offense that had been pretty much tearing everyone up that they played to this point. They held them to 219 total yards and forced two turnovers. Like that tells me what I need to know about Penn State. That tells me that this Penn State defense is not only like I'm with you. They're their second best team. They might be the first best team because like we haven't seen anything from Ohio State. Ohio State hasn't played a damn anybody yet. So like there's a chance that Penn State is the best team in the Big Ten and we just haven't seen it yet.
That's very much within the realm of possibility. Like Luke Altmaier has been playing really well. Like he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten and in the country. One we haven't been talking a lot about, but like they took whatever offensive game plan the Illini had, they spun it on its head like a top, and like it collapsed on
Yeah.
its head like the Pixies song. Where's my mind? I don't know. Georgia just lost to Alabama again. But it's what I go back to at Penn State is just like the high end talent, both on the coaching staff and the players. Like how many teams can match that like across the country? Okay, I would say like Alabama, Texas, Georgia. I would say Ohio State can do that. And then you get beyond that and you're like, I'll take their dudes over Ole Miss and their coaching
Yeah.
staff.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Especially after what we saw today.
Yes, this is funny with Ole Miss. I did mention this. I think I was talking with Scott Rogus on the desk. He's like he had no idea that Joe Judge, who gave him like a lot of night terrors, there coaching his Giants. I'm like, wait, Joe Judge is coaching for against his alma mater's biggest arch rival, and I'm
Hmm.
like sitting there. I'm like, okay, Pete Golding's there. Okay, Charlie Wise Jr. is there. And Joe Cox, a man who knows how to lose to Kentucky, he's on that staff. And look what happened.
Dude, man, that Ole Miss staff is like there's a lot of guys I like on it, but at the same time, it is really like the island of misfit toys. Like it really, really is.
Dude, it's Peter Clavin's wedding party, dude. You were not ready for that at all. No.
I wasn't. That's so good, dude. Oh my God. The Ferrigno State. Oh my
So,
God.
okay, so we'll pick those four guys. And we're gonna put them like with like who's who. So okay, Charlie Weiss Jr. I feel that he's is he Robbie? He might be Robbie.
He's for sure Robbie. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Joe Cox,
That's Ferrigno, bro. You know it is. That's Ferrigno.
Pete Golding. That's Thomas Lynn's character.
Yes.
They're all about their appearances, and then Joe Judge. That's Mel.
No, that's Mel for sure. So, sorry, the picture's a little old, you know. It's from back in the day when he was a Patriot special teams coordinator.
Oh my God. Lane Kiffin getting married. Oh,
Oh God.
and then Mike Leach is definitely Sydney Five.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Would would Mike Leach have a dog? If he had a puggle, would it be named Anwar Sadat or something else? It'd be like
Oh
Geronimo or something.
yeah, Geronimo or like Custer. I feel like he'd go with Custer or something like that.
Yeah, we're probably need to move on to the next topic here about Ole Miss because we're there now.
We are on Ole Miss. So yeah, we're gonna pass on Ole Miss because like man, Kentucky's not a good football team. And like I understand that they pushed Georgia to the brink and then they finally, they upset Ole Miss today, but like that was a really disappointing effort from Ole Miss today. Like it was over the past few weeks, one thing that I have noted is despite Henry Parrish Jr. putting up some rushing numbers, their rushing efficiency just hasn't quite been there. And I think that really kind of reared its head today. And like the loss of Quinshaw Judkins felt like it was the most apparent today than it has at any other point in the season. Now, granted, it's the first SEC team that they played. It's the first real competition that they played, if we're being
Right.
really honest about it. And so, like, it was highly disappointing. I'm not going to write off Ole Miss completely, but like, you just made your job a whole lot harder because when you're looking at the Ole Miss schedule, when you and I were looking at it, and we're like, okay, this is maybe the most manageable schedule for an SEC contender that we see. We were counting Kentucky as like a pretty easy win, like as a runaway win. Now you have no margin for error. Now you can't afford to slip up against some of the tough games on your schedule. So like this, I mean, like in terms of crap in the bed, this is a pretty big crap in the bed. It's not quite Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois crapping the bed, but it's up there.
This is like Tony Romo holding a calendar that says December and then just like putting just putting a Tootsie Roll into your mom's bed,
Yes, exactly.
or just Falcons football basically.
Or the Cowboys in the playoffs. You know what? I'll take some heat here.
Or the Braves for the most part outside of 21. Yeah, that's how that goes. But it's so like I don't think Kentucky is that bad. I think Kentucky knows exactly who they are. They're just very limited offensively because Brock Vandagriff kind of sucks. It's
Hmm.
just like he played as good as he possibly could have today, and you needed basically Jackson Dart to just be completely out of it. I mean, I know he's LDS, but he must have gone out the night before. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what he was doing. Like he had that terrible fumble and stuff like that. Like you weren't going up against Bama, dude. You're going up against Kentucky. Granted, I think it's like what Walker like on the defensive line.
Hmm.
That's an all American.
Yeah.
That might be the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. That guy is filthy. And
Yeah.
as I'm watching Kentucky play, I'm like, they're gonna do this again to somebody else
Hmm.
this year.
Oh yeah. I mean, they almost
They're
did to Georgia. Like, let's
mhm.
be like they very clearly are capable of this, especially like it's not just Walker. That defense is good and like it's a Mark Stoops team. We know the defense is going to be well coached. They're going to be disciplined. And when you have playmakers like Walker up front, like that's kind of a force multiplier when you have a unit that is so well coached.
Yes, this puts them back on track to go 7-5, which is what I had them. I had them beating South Carolina. Obviously, this more than makes up for it. It's like this is a win and a half.
Yeah.
But if I look at Ole Miss, there is no margin for error. They basically have to win out to get in now
Hmm.
because you have to beat Georgia, and you sure as hell can't lose to LSU. You can't lose to Arkansas. That might happen. And it's just like there's just not a lot of quality opponents on their SEC schedule. Like you look at it like this is pretty weak. And like you're gonna end up it's gonna end up like the Mark Rick, some of those Mark Rick teams where it's like the one loss you couldn't afford to have, you did. And this is why you're not gonna play for a national championship. I don't think this was on Lane either. I don't
No.
know what it was. I could just tell that he was just I don't know if his players let him down. Maybe his assistants did. I don't know. I feel like it's so I couldn't quite put my finger on what exactly it was, but as I'm watching this game, like Kentucky's not going away. Kentucky's, they beat the snot out of Ohio U after Georgia, and they're playing with a lot of momentum since the South Carolina loss. Yeah, that it was a perfect storm, but yeah, Vaught Hemingway had a terrible homecoming.
Yeah, so I have two things. One is just a thought, the other is a question I have for you. First thought would be I think part of the blame is on the assistants, but I also think part of the blame is simply on Jackson Dart. Like I think that we looked at the situation, we looked at the schedule, and we looked at the numbers Jackson Dart put up last year, and we're like, okay, this is a Heisman contender. But let's look back at like pre-Ole Miss Jackson Dart. Let's look back at when Jackson Dart was brought into this program. Lane didn't just bring him in. He also then brought in what's his name? The Oklahoma State kid, Spencer Sanders,
Yes, and he also had a LSU transfer to I think
Walker
it was
Howard.
Walker
Walker
Howard
Howard.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So he brought in competition for Jackson Dart. To me, that tell like just reading the tea leaves, that tells me you're not fully confident in Jackson Dart. And then all of a sudden, we're supposed to be fully confident in him because he's had another year. Like, he's still the same guy he's always been. He's going to be inconsistent. He's going to have duds like this. So, like, to me, like, this is just what Jackson Dart is. And, like, maybe we were just overestimating what he is coming into the season and, like, baking that into to Ole Miss's ceiling because of that. My question for you, my second thought on this, since we seem to agree that this isn't a loss that goes on Lane Kiffin, do you think that this potentially like makes it more likely that Lane Kiffin goes to a place like Florida if that job opens up? Because for as good and as comfortable of a job as Ole Miss is, I think a game like this really tells you that the ceiling is always going to be defined in modern college football for Ole Miss. Whereas Florida, that ceiling is a national championship. At Ole Miss, I just don't think the ceiling is a national championship.
That's a very interesting point there. I'll answer this and I'll go back to Dart and then I'll probably close up with my last little thought about the day, whatever it is. I feel like this with Ole Miss, it's like you're trying to convince yourself, oh my God, it's Oregon of the SEC. Like, oh, we got all this money, we got all this stuff, the O and all this other. Come to the SIP, and it's just a bunch of just like slogans and S. I almost swore there. But at the end of the day, I still look at both programs. Honestly, with Oregon, I'm like, I don't know if you're ever actually going to win a national title here. Maybe you will. I'm more confident in them, just given Lanning, given the Phil Knight money or whatever becomes of that, whenever that goes. I do kind of feel like with Ole Miss, it's like you couldn't beat Kentucky at home during like homecoming. Like you had everything going. This is Jackson Dart's like Heisman season. Yeah, you lost Quinshot Judkins. You have Parrish in the backfield and Yuli Bentley, who you don't use, which I don't understand. Maybe
No.
he's hurt. Maybe he's just bad. Maybe he's sad boy. I don't know. Then you got all these players on the defensive line and everything like that. And again, it just this should have been the year where it all lined up for Ole Miss. And this is exactly why I didn't put them in the playoff to start the year. I'm like, there's no margin for error. And I'm like, they're gonna like if they lose to LSU and they lose to Georgia, they're not gonna get in. Like they're gonna be in the outside looking in. Like they're if they went 10-2 and then Georgia, Alabama, or Texas, if one of them went 9-3, they'll probably put one of them in over Ole Miss in some capacity. Like I just feel like Ole Miss like has to go 11. Like I don't see how like 10-2 with their soft schedule is going to do that. So I would say like Kiffin could conceivably believe. I don't think Florida's the job though. I think there may be another one out there, but I think you're
Okay.
absolutely right that like this is it was a pretty damning loss in terms of just like you're this is as good as it's gonna get. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. Like if Matt Rule goes to like Auburn, like he just goes to Nebraska, that's where he was born. Like go do that.
Yeah. No, I definitely think like I come down on the same side of it. Maybe Florida isn't the job. Like Florida kind of just looks like a cesspool right now. So I don't know if you want to touch that, but like I do think that yeah, this is kind of a this it almost sounds hyperbolic to say, but it's almost like a program defining loss in term, and I don't mean that in terms of like you're never going to recover from this type of loss or anything like that. Like that's not what I mean by that. I mean it as in like if you're looking for the definition of what Ole Miss is and what their ceiling is and like where they're always going to have shortcomings, it's games like this because like I think we talked about it all offseason about like you looked at the teams that really went for it in the transfer portal and like tried to supplement what they already had on the roster. It was Ohio State and Ole Miss that really went after it as hard as you possibly could. Ohio State, that's obviously paying dividends. Ohio State, looks the part. Granted, they haven't played anybody, but like they still look the part to this point. Ole Miss has not necessarily looked the part. They've actually gotten, in my opinion, they've looked worse with each passing week. And it looks like to me where they just simply do not have the recruiting base. They don't have the overall resources to be supplementing in the transfer portal, going all in, because when you're going all in, you still don't have enough. And so, like, that's kind of where I come down on it. And, like, I do have to wonder if Lane Kiffin also is realizing that at this point.
You also look at the rivals. Mississippi State's as down as it's ever been.
Yeah.
Alabama's seems to be good, seems to be great now. There is some doubt there. LSU's kind of weird. you're Arkansas, I mean, like what's going on there? A&M's A&M. Vanderbilt's kind of whatever it is. Like it's all kind of coming up for you in your sphere, and you're not getting there. I guess like my last thought is with Dart. It's like I just kind of felt like what he was putting up was just empty calorie nonsense. I never really thought he
Mhm.
was a serious Heisman contender. I always knew that this was kind of what he was going to be about. I'm like, I never thought of him as a first round pick. He'll get drafted. He'll have a decent backup, play a little bit NFL career, but it's not going to be. He's not Cam Ward. Like he's not
No.
Jalen Moreau. He's not Shedeur Sanders. He's not Quinn Ewers. He's not Carson Beck. It's just he's with Dylan Gabriel there.
Yeah, honestly, yes. Like what it like we're looking at this Oregon team and we're talking about like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's take the 30,000 foot view of this. What has Dylan Gabriel actually won in his college football career? Nothing. And you take a step back. What has Jackson Dart actually won in his college football career? Nothing. And like you kind of have to when you put it in that perspective and you kind of like take a step back beyond just like you said the stats, like if you look at the box score, yes, two highly impressive players, but when you look at the actual accomplishments, there's a lot of meat on the bone still.
Totally. I agree with that 100%. Dylan and Jackson, they're, they're, their moms from Macon. They have to be.
With the way Jackson spelled, absolutely.
His mom's name's like Barley Dart or something stupid.
It's Brixley. Brixley Dart.
The best part is she's asleep and doesn't care that her dad lost last night. That's okay.
That's right.
Last night, whatever. And I guess we move on to the last topic here. I am gonna punt on throwing dirt on Georgia's grave. That's stupid. Like
Hmm.
I may be wearing a really cool Georgia shirt that the Arizona State podcast got for me from birthday week. Being able to be old enough to run for president. If Kamala Harris wanted me to debate, I would do it. I'm not going to run away from that stuff.
That's right.
And, and I'm not going to run away from like criticism about the dogs or the Braves or whatever. But it's like Georgia could not have played a worse first half.
Mhm.
That was the worst I've seen them look probably since the 2020 season. Maybe like after Marcus Rosby-Jacksaint broke his leg in the end zone versus Florida, maybe Stetson Bennett just not looking the part at Tuscaloosa the last time they played there. Georgia got punched in the face pretty quickly, and like they were down 28 nothing in a blink of an eye, and they nearly came back and almost won. They were leading very, very briefly. It's Look, Georgia, as much as I said they were going to go undefeated, deep down I knew like they weren't. Their schedule's
Yeah.
too tough. Like they were going to probably drop between 1 and 3 of these games on their schedule, and they'll be in the playoff mix. They'll be somewhere between like the 7 and 11 seed and all things at this point. And we'll see what happens. I feel like next year's the year that Georgia probably falls off precipitously unless Gunnar Stockton is just,
Hey,
puts
don't
a
forget about your boy Jaden Rashada, brother. You still got
that's
Jaden
true.
Rashada sitting there.
I mean, that's true. He's giving off some Dylan Raiola vibes. We're like, I'm just gonna like Bear Alexander, welcome back to the portal, brother.
Dude, Bear Alexander, he's been looking for a home, but the portal was his home all along. That's what we're finding out.
I was born in the portal.
Molded by it.
uh, so I don't know if you heard on the program Thursday. Lisa and I looked up because it's one of our few mutuals. It's
Yeah.
it's Bear Alexander, Michael the Burner Turner, and Ron Washington's basically our mutuals. Casey Kochman, Mark Teixeira, Perry Manassian, whatever their SE general manager who sucks.
Hmm. Yes.
Um, but I was like looking this up with I completely lost my train of thought right now.
Bear Alexander, transfer portal. I got you.
Yes, we were looking up his thank you so much. I was not gonna find that here. I asked like, what's his name? Like his name can't be Bear. And she's like, well, I've got a friend whose cousin whose child's name is Bear. I'm like, interesting. But I'm like, what's his name? Like Clarence Bear Alexander. She's like, no, it's It's Keith with IAN after it. So it's Keith Ian, or Keith Ian or Kethian. So Keith Ian.
Okay, okay, I'd go by Bear as well. Um,
um, Easier to spell, not a sissy. This is false start.
that's right. But no, I think you're absolutely right about Georgia. You can't throw dirt on their grave. Like first off, Georgia's schedule was way too daunting to think that, like, to say full-heartedly that Georgia was going undefeated this year. Like, do I still think Georgia's the best team in the country or one of the best teams in the country? I do. I absolutely do. And I think Alabama is too. And I think we saw that. And the other thing, this is something I wanted to ask you about because obviously, like, you know the nuts and bolts of Georgia way better than I do. And I know that there's a lot of criticism that comes Mike Bobo's way. But one thing I think that at least should be a wake-up call from this game is in the first half when Georgia was getting just smacked in the mouth continuously when they were falling behind 28 to nothing. Whenever Beck had the ball, not only was the pressure clearly rattling him, but I felt like Bobo was not doing Beck any favors with pace. It felt like everything was still trying to be methodical. And then in the second half, the pace of the offense absolutely picked up like a ton. And part of that was, by necessity. You're down as much as you are, you have to go. But that's when the offense started really humming. It seemed like they got Alabama on their heels a little bit, and Beck got more comfortable in that rhythm. Do you think like that's enough to like maybe flick a light switch on for Mike Bobo that maybe tempo is the way to get Beck in this offense more comfortable? Because I feel like every time they played with tempo, even going back to last year, this offense has just looked more effective and more comfortable.
I wish it was the case, but Mike Boba's going to keep doing Mike Boba until Mike Boba's dead. I'm going to keep doing me until I'm dead. That's what it's all about. I think one thing that people have not realized is Tate Ratledge is not playing today. Really
Hmm.
through you have your All-American guard out, and he's over there.
Yeah.
The Arizona State podcast goes, "Who is that guy?" And I'm like, "That is the most glorious piece of line meat I've ever seen in my life."
That man
Like
eats
that.
steak raw. Like just
If
gets a
his,
ribeye and just tears into it.
what do you think his middle name is? It's Wagyu.
Oh, for sure.
No, or he has like a pet dog named Wagyu or something. So I wonder when he's going to get drafted. I wonder what team like would be the absolute best place. Like he's like a second round pick.
Bro, it's the Lions. Come on. Tate Ratledge and Dan Campbell together. That could like change everything in the world. Like everything might be right after that happens.
Welcome to Dan Campbell Steakhouse, man, where we slaughter the animal right in front of you.
And then Tate Ratledge asks, "Can I do it?" Like he wants to be the one to do the slaughtering.
The only other place he needs to go is just be the channel the inner spirit of the ripped Taylor Lewan. Like just be Taylor. Yeah, just go to the Titans and do that as.
Yes.
But for real though, like we can't destroy Georgia too much. Like it sucks. We're gonna probably go down from like two to like seven or eight or something like that after this loss. You're still gonna be probably ranked. We're gonna both probably put them inside of our top 12 after this
Mhm.
week. I don't know how we're gonna size all that up, but like, yeah, if you completely count Georgia out, they're gonna come back and they're simply too talented to just completely crumble. Like you said, they could have just completely mailed it in. I'll give them credit for coming out there in the second half and looking a lot better, but we gotta stop playing Alabama, man. And I hate this so much. I'm in like an Alabama house right there. They don't deserve happiness. Are you kidding me?
That
I don't either. That's fine. No.
my other observation from this game that I've been trying to place it for a long time and I finally did. Your boy Glenn Schumann looks exactly like Ben Roethlisberger, and I can't unsee it now. It's uncanny. Holy hell. Like he was like over there yelling on the sideline, and I was like, we need to, put a protective order on something for people in Tuscaloosa because Ben Roethlisberger's on the loose on the Georgia sideline.
I mean, he goes out to Lake Oconee. He's hanging out with Kirby. They're on the golf course. Like, man, why is everybody here being like really, really mean to me? It's like my name's not Ben. It's Glenn.
Glenn, not Ben. Let's print the t-shirts right now. We'll make millions.
Dude, that's you're so spot on. That's better than being like Travis Darnell looks like the cousin of Chris Cornell.
Yes.
I was honestly Taylor Lewan and Tate Ratledge. They have the same dad.
Oh, for sure. 100%. There's no question about that. Mr. Lewan had a fling somewhere.
Yes, he was a military man. Oh God. Uh, this is so stupid. But yes, this was 3 yards and a cloud of punt for week 5 of the 2024 college football season. Yeah. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. Shout out to your cousin Ryan. He's great, man. Why is he so talented?
Dude, I don't know, man. He should be taking AP calculus or something, but here he is in Tuscaloosa.
He was just he learned from a Coach Biff about books on tape, like learning and doing stuff at the same
That's right.
Yeah, you can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle 20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. I'm so glad you're back. We'll definitely unpack Yellowstone. And you got anything is there anything you want to let me know about you and Antonio in Wyoming for Air Force this week? Anything that like I need to be prepared for? Because I know you're going to drop a bombshell on me with that.
Look, there was wildlife involved, and that's all I can really tell you. And we'll unpack that a little bit more this week.
See, no, a bulldog. And this is false start.